several of us who watched the World Cup last year, summer of 22 in Qatar, are probably familiar with some of the controversy that surrounded that event. One of the main controversies was related to the armbands that teams wanted to wear. A lot of the Euro teams had brought these One Love armbands with rainbows on it, and it was intended to be an overt display of support for the LGBTQ plus community. Here's the problem with that. Qatar has a ban on homosexual behavior and everything else that goes along with what's represented on the armband. And so they told FIFA, don't do that here. And so FIFA then relayed this message to the teams and added that if you do bring the armbands, you're going to get a yellow card, your players are going to then get another yellow card, and whoever wears the armband will eventually find themselves not able to play in the game. So these players faced a choice, and the teams decided for them it was more important that they were able to play the game of soccer for their country than show the support for the rainbow community. And so this brings us to a very important question. What do we do when worldviews collide? And it's interesting, in this case, the two worldviews colliding were actually different threads of the same worldview. Lifting up marginalized voices versus respecting someone's culture. My question is, when you get into those kind of conflicts, which one is more important? Who gets to decide what takes precedence in that situation? I want to talk about worldview because this is important before you even get into a discussion about whether we should wave the rainbow flag or not. We have to have a conversation on worldviews. Because the reality is this: there are some things that we're never going to agree on because we're approaching it from two radically different premises. There's obviously all kinds of different worldviews, all kinds of different belief systems, but if you want to boil it down to two main ones related to the rainbow flag topic, here's what they boil down to. One premise on one side that speaks of scriptural authority, or whichever religion you want to choose, Islam, Judaism, they all have their book that's holy, that informs their ethics. So this is a worldview that recognizes that there is a standard, and it's a standard that's absolute truth, and it's based on a divine revelation from God. And so the supernatural is a real factor in the equation. And the one who created also made it clear what the standard is, and that it doesn't, change or deviate over time. The standard doesn't change. On the other side, we have what we can boil down to the worldview of humanism. It takes a lot of different forms, but humanism is kind of like the overarching worldview that essentially says that we don't need God or any other deity to tell us what's right or wrong. We're humans and we have the capacity in ourselves to be self-actualizing. We can set our own ethics. We can set our own morality. We can decide what's right or wrong for us. And, there are certain things that go along with that, like multiculturalism, civil rights. Generally, the idea is, let's make everything as good as we possibly can for all humans, which sounds great. Here's the danger, though, and this is the assumption that's dangerous with humanism. It's an assumption that, and this is what I've seen play out in the worldview that's dominating our society right now. This is the assumption that because we evolve in terms of technology, and we also gain knowledge over the years, so our knowledge base increase, our technology is better, they also take this assumption and apply it to ethics and morality. In other words, they say that because we've evolved, therefore we've also evolved in terms of ethics and morality. We are better people now than we were before. Here's a contrast that I want to point out. One value system says, it's lasted generations. It's been around for thousands of years. And it says that ethics, morality is constant. There's a standard. It doesn't change over time. It doesn't change based on location. Right is right, wrong is wrong. And it doesn't matter what you feel about it, what you think should be right. On the other one, the standard is bent and shaped over the years. And in some cases, you look at the past 20 years, there's a standard that's changed, and it's almost unrecognizable in some cases from one generation to the next. And I want to challenge you, if you've embraced this humanistic worldview, my question to you is, what makes you smarter than the previous generation? And are you 100% sure that your sense of ethics, morality, your view of right and wrong is superior to that of your grandparents? Are you certain about that? As we begin this topic of the rainbow flag community, it's commonly accepted as a generalization that if somebody wants to explore an alternate lifestyle, it should be celebrated. It should be normalized. That's okay. And most people just assume that this is the case without any idea as to what value system is behind this, as well as the reason some people oppose it. Regardless of your view on the topic, whether you're, an ally, whether you're somebody that, thinks that the movement has gone too far, I want to challenge you to do two things. The first challenge, understand what value system under which you're operating. Is your worldview based on a biblical or just even some type of spiritual worldview? Or on the other side, is it humanistic? Does it take away the factor of the supernatural? Understand not just what you think is right, but why you believe it is right. What might be informing the opinion of someone who doesn't agree with you? You believe something's right and wrong. Who is telling you? Because let's be honest, you didn't just wake up and decide what's right for you. There was already an established worldview that you were listening to, that you were influenced by, that helped shape the way that you think. You were taught to think by somebody. Who was it, and what worldview are they standing on? So first of all, understand what that is. Second challenge, take a minute to evaluate your worldview. Is it solid? I want to read in 2 Timothy, Paul is warning, and it's interesting because Timothy is in a place of Ephesus where there's, a very, very cosmopolitan, very divergent worldviews kind of clashing. Some people say, oh, cool, I'm going to borrow from this one. I like this religion. We're going to worship this God with this God, and they're kind of borrowing. And Paul is warning him, and he's saying the time is coming when people will not endure sound teaching, but having itching ears, they will accumulate for themselves teachers to suit their own passions. And the question that I want to ask you, did you do this? In what ways have we done this? Do you believe what you believe because it seems right and it makes sense in your own mind? Is it right because it's right? Or is it right because you really, really, really want it to be right? You really want it to be okay? And is it possible that you might be wrong? The last thing I want to say on this topic while we're in Ephesus, in Ephesians chapter 6, and this is more for my people who have the biblical worldview. Obviously, I think most of you kind of know where I come out on this issue, so I'll be upfront and open about this. A lot of my Christian friends have come to this topic, very combative. I want to remind us that we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Paul, as well as the people that were reading this the first time, were very, very aware of the pagan influences lurking around that cosmopolitan city, particularly the cult of Diana. And he was aware that it was not merely a physical battle or merely a verbal one that the church was facing. For this reason, when he gets into the weapons, the helmet of salvation, sword of the spirit, shield of faith, all of those, he's referring to weapons that are spiritual and not physical. In other words, we're not going to, if we're going to try to win a fight or try to influence people or have a discussion even, we're not going to have enough convincing words, whether it's in person or online, to change the mind of somebody who has a different worldview than we do. We have to start with prayer. We have to engage this discussion on the spiritual level before we can even have it on the physical level. So that's why I want to challenge people of faith. Make this a spiritual battle. Don't attack your neighbor. Don't lash out. Pray. And as we go forward, let's have a civil conversation. If you watch this to this point, I know it's a longer video. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me. And I look forward to hearing any interaction that you might be willing to provide.